Hi everyone, I'm Zoe from Xact Accounting. Master Plumbers has asked us to assist its members on how to set up STP Phase 2 in accounting software. So here we are today. Before we start that though, I'm just going to do the usual disclaimer that this is general advice, and if you need any assistance or specialised advice, you'll need to contact your accounting advisors or payroll advisors directly. I'm also going to mention that we are doing this example based on the Fair Work Act, and under the Act, the ordinary hours are 38 hours per week. Now, I know Master Plumbers is currently getting some additional information on working 40-hour weeks from Fair Work Australia and the Payroll Association. But until we get confirmation on that, we are just going to run this example at 38 hours per week per the award. So there are three things that we need to do before running a payroll under STP Phase 2. And the first one is adding the new pay items under the pay settings. Next is checking that the leave settings have next is checking that leave settings have been set up correctly, and thirdly is updating the employee templates. So step 1 and step 2 are in the same area, and then setting up the pay employee templates is in the employee area. So there's two ways to get into payroll settings. You can either go up to your name here, click down, go into settings and press payroll settings, or you can go directly from payroll here and go down to payroll settings. So you'll come to this screen. We want to go over here to pay items. And now this is step 1. Now, under the award, there's quite a few allowances that will need to be added. I'm not going to show you how to add every single one because it's the same steps through, but just be aware of what you need to be paying under the award for specific employees. You'll also find that if you have apprentices, that you're going to have to add a lot of line items, because if you have more than one apprentice and one of them finished grade 12 and one didn't, they're actually paid at different rates, and the allowances are also at different rates. So you may end up having a lot of items under earnings. Now, to add an allowance, press down here on add, go to allowance, and you get this screen. So the allowance I'm going to put in today is the industry allowance. So the earnings name will be industry allowance. You can see I've added a few here already. And then the next thing to do is select the allowance type. Now, most of the ones for plumbers they're fairly straightforward and self-explanatory, but you'll find most of them are going to fall under tools. So the tools allowance will fall under tools. Tasks or qualifications. So the industry allowance falls under tasks. The registration allowance, for example, falls under the qualifications. Again, if you need some guidance or assistance, speak to your advisor. They should be able to tell you where to put each allowance. Display name, we just usually do the same as the earnings name. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because a lot of the allowances under the award are all-purpose allowances, which means they have to be paid for all purposes, which include overtime and annual leave. Now, for Xero to calculate that, unfortunately, we can't stick it through as a fixed allowance, even though that would make everybody's lives a lot easier, because that will not allow you to add it to the calculations for annual leave. So, to get it to do that, under the rate type here, pick rate per unit. This is also the other very important part of this. The type of unit has to be the same as ordinary hours. So ordinary hours are set up as hours, so the type of units has to be hours. And to do that, you need to take the value of the allowance. So the industry allowance under the award is $34.81 a week. And we have to divide that by the hours per week. So under the award, 38 hours, so $34.81 divided by 38 hours gives you a rate per unit of 91 cents plus a few more numbers. Now, the expense account is going to be your wages and salaries, or wherever you are coding your ordinary ordinary wages, which will be the same place as you were previously. It's reportable, and this is where you need to tick it as an all-purpose allowance to get it to include it in the rate when calculating annual leave and overtime. So annual leave, overtime, make sure they're clicked, and then press add. Now you'll need to keep adding allowances until you get all the allowances in there that need to be in there, under the same rules there with doing it as hours if they are an all-purpose allowance. So step 2 is to go in and check your leave. So you don't need to move anywhere from here, just jump down to the leave here. You'll see there's this leave category column. Now, if you haven't updated this, you'll see orange boxes, which will be flagging you to change it. And to do that, just come over here again to the 3 dots, drop down, press edit. This one is annual leave that we're changing. This is the easiest step because all of these are written down. Don't really need to think about it. So annual leave, obviously we're going to leave as annual leave. Press save. And once you've got rid of all the orange boxes, you're all good. So the next thing to do after this is to update your employees' pay templates, because you don't want to be faffing about each week adding allowances to their pay runs. Now, again, there's a little bit of trick in this. So we've had a look at doing it between timesheets and doing it this way. This is the much easier way because employees are not going to put their hours for every single allowance when doing a timesheet. So jump up, down into payroll and into employees. We're going to use Odette as our example employee here and jump over to pay template. So you'll need to do this on each employee. So you'll see here that Odette just has ordinary hours. So now we will need to add all the allowances that we've just added in the pay items before. So as I said previously, we haven't added all of the allowances. So we'll just give you an example with the ones that we have. So to add those allowances, we'll go add earnings line. And drop down and pick the ones that we've done. So industry allowance there. You want to use earnings rate, and the reason for that is for ease of doing these templates and the timesheets when you're coming to the pay, because we can just set that up automatically, and that will use the rate that we've put in the pay item previously. So press OK, and you'll see it's slightly different to the ordinary hours. And so all we need to now do is put in the hours. And as I said before, that's going to calculate on that amount that we've put in the payroll settings. So 38 hours. The other thing to remember though is you need to reduce the ordinary hours rate. So previously the rate was inclusive of all your allowances. Now that we're splitting those allowances out, that ordinary hours rate needs to come down so that you're not double paying the allowances. So we're only putting in the industry allowance here. So we need to take that 0.916 off that we calculated the hourly rate as off the hourly rate here. So $39.50 per hour less the hourly allowance amount gets us down to 38.58. Awesome. So that will take our total down. Employees are not getting paid less. It's just how it's being reported and how it's viewed that is changing. The other thing to remember too is that the tool allowance is not an all-purpose allowance. So it doesn't need to be included in your pay items when you're setting them up in the settings area. It does not need to be included for overtime or annual leave calculations, and there's no super paid on it either. So that's just another thing to remember too. So once you've added all those allowances down there, make sure you press save. And then I'm going to show you what that looks like when you're doing a pay run. So again, jump up to your payroll, pay employees. here at the moment, so I'm just going to reset that pay run. Yes, we're going to reset that. And so once that's done, we're going to jump into Odette here. And you'll see now she's got her ordinary hours with that changed rate from the 39.5 down to the 38. And her industry allowance has come through with the rate that's pulled through itself, which is the 34.81, which is what it is per the award. So she's still getting paid the same amount per week as she was before. It's just the split between how these are reported is now different. And that is pretty much it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, or otherwise please speak to your trusted advisor who will be able to help you. Again, otherwise, as I said, please feel free to reach out, Master Plumbers, and we are open for your questions. Cheers.